Good morning, world. This is the Space Cowboy coming from the Interplanetary Good Vibe Zone, and welcome to another new episode of BBS Chats. Today, we are going to be talking about official net battlers and exactly what is an official net battler and how much of an impact that has within the lore of Battle Network, and also how that could kind of tie into something with the Mega Man Star Force series. So of course, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you give a like, make sure you hit that big red subscribe button, and also if you want to check out the other BBS Chats videos that I have uploaded so far, the link to the playlist will be in the description below, so definitely check out the playlist and watch the other BBS Chats videos that I have done so far. And with all of that being said, let's go ahead and get into this topic. So, as it is said on the wiki, an official net battler is a government-licensed net battler that has the authority to net battle anywhere to help the net police fight against net crime. They also have access to places and jack-in points that normal people do not. So, normally within the world of Mega Man Battle Network, you can operate your navies and pretty much do whatever you want up to a degree. Like if you want to battle with friends, you know, you can very much do that in like a playground-esque setting or whatever, I guess the equivalent of what an arcade or like net battle center would be, all that kind of stuff. You know, navies are a regular part of life within the Mega Man Battle Network universe, but of course, you're not just allowed to do anything, as the world of Battle Network is a very scary and dangerous place in the sense that everything is based on the internet and technology, and because everything is so connected, a lot of big dangerous things can happen within the world of Battle Network. One of the funniest things that I always thought about was the Skytown scenario in Battle Network 6, where the city or town is very much controlled by this big program, and if anything goes wrong with that program, the city can end up plummeting down from the sky and crash, and you can already guess how that goes. And as dumb and weird as that sounds, we have to remember that we are talking about a children's JRPG. Not a lot of thought went into a lot of these scenarios in terms of the actual, you know, implications and impact that a lot of this stuff could have. But yeah, that's just an example of the shit that can happen in Battle Network. And like even the smallest things, like a program in like somebody's kitchen going off could set like a fire, potentially start a fire in someone's house and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, just to give you an example of the things that can happen, in essentially that's where an official net battler would come in and, you know, handle more bigger situations in terms of like people with a net navi that could be doing something bad, like some sort of crime that could lead to a more like bigger escalated problem that could very much endanger the lives of people and also destroy parts of the internet or the net and all that kind of stuff. And something that I actually thought originally is that official net battlers were the police force of the Battle Network universe, and that's not entirely the case. There is a net police, which from what I'm reading and looking at here, it seems to be a bit separate from the official net battlers, but official net battlers pretty much work hand in hand with the police, especially if they are official like government agents to a degree, helping out with these kind of situations. And the official net battlers essentially work like hand in hand with, you know, the net police. The games don't really pay any attention to this. We know that Shad, or you know, Enzon as he is in the anime, but I'll just keep calling him Shad. So Shad is an official net battler, and that is a position that he holds very much throughout all of the games. In Battle Network 2, he's trying to take care of Gospel. Battle Network 3, him and Lan are working together to fight Wily. In Battle Network 4, 5, dealing with Regal. Battle Network 6, he's undercover. We know that Shad is a character that very much holds up that position. And speaking of Lan, Lan is also a official net battler, except the games do not highlight this. It is much more of a thing in the anime, although in the anime, instead of being called official net battlers, they are called net saviors, which is essentially the same thing. It's just a different term. Although in the anime, they do reference that net saviors were called officials back in the day, but there are a good amount of characters in the anime that do hold that position, and we will get into that in a second. But just to explain with the games real quick, yeah, Lan is an official net battler by all measurements. He's pretty much inducted in by Shad in the second game, And then they kind of don't reference it in the third game all that much, which is weird. I felt like they should have done that. Battle Network 4, that never comes up. Battle Network 5, considering the whole like Team Proto Man, Team Colonel of it all, especially in the case of Team Proto Man, because you're working with Shad, and Shad has like his own personal team and you are in there. That's essentially what I count as all of those characters being official net battlers working along with Shad. And then Battle Network 6, again, it doesn't come up. And this is where the continuity always comes into play with these games, because Lan has saved the world numerous amounts of times throughout these games, yet it hardly ever comes up in any of the games. And I just always felt that to be weird, because we do know that Lan is an official net battler and that he has helped with numerous dangerous situations, and he should have some kind of recognition in terms of his role and what he's done. But yeah, it just doesn't come up at all in the games. But again, it's a lot more prevalent in the anime, especially with the anime being a bit more episodic in nature, but it does still tell a bit more of a serialized story, at least once we get up to the second season, and then especially in the third and fourth seasons. So that's a lot more prevalent, where Shad and Lan are pretty much like the main two official net battlers and net saviors. And there are other characters in the anime that do hold that position. Raika is another one of those characters. He's essentially Sharo's official net battler. And then there's also Dingo, which I can't remember if Dingo was officially taken in to the organization in the anime. I know he's a bit more of a prevalent character in the manga, although I can't remember if the officials are played up bigger in the manga. I'm pretty sure they are, because it's been a very long time since I read the manga, but I am pretty sure that in the manga, official net battlers do play a big role in that as well. But yeah, I want to say that Dingo is also an official net battler by the time he comes in to stream. And by the time we get to season 4 with Beast, that's one of those situations where a good amount of the characters are essentially brought in, like, yeah, you're an official net battler, you're helping us out with this. Male becomes an official net battler for that season. I want to say Princess Pride becomes an official net battler by that season. And there's like a good amount of characters. Maybe I'll like put up a little example of just like some characters that also take up that role of official net battlers. But yes, they keep the peace. They're able to solve problems, but much more bigger problems than a normal person would not be able to do. Although there is something I wanted to mention real quick. There is something called a city net battler. And, just to give a brief description of this one, a city net battler is a civilian net battler that is allowed to accept requests from citizens in the official center. They do not get all of the privileges of an official net battler, but they can represent officials when they are not available. To be a city net battler, one needs to have an official center certified B license. So just ignore that last part of that statement, because that's a bit more tying into Battle Network 2. But essentially, a city net battler takes the place of an official net battler, where they can help with some problems, although they probably don't get to help with the much more bigger scale problems. So in a sense, you can kind of count them as a reserve forces if anything bad were to happen to an official net battler, or if there are no official net battlers around, if they're away, if they're handling other problems. City net battlers can also just take up smaller tasks. They could take up like requests, as far as like maybe if there's like a package that needs to be delivered to like a Navi or a program, or if they have to take care of a smaller task. Maybe if they could, handle deleting smaller viruses, then that is something that a city net battler could do. But when it comes to the more grander, bigger problems out there, again, that's what the official net battlers are there for. Now, to tie it in to Mega Man Star Force, as I said we would try to do earlier, we know that in the Star Force series, there is the Satella Police, and for the most part are the full official police force. They are police officers. They take care of problems, ensuring the peace in Star Force. We do know that there is another faction of the Satella Police with the Satella Police Commandos. But the difference between the Satella Police and the official net battlers is that it's not completely separate. Like there aren't a lot of people out there within the Star Force universe that have the ability to perform the EM wave change transforming themselves, becoming like MegaMan-esque characters. It's not like Battle Network where pretty much anybody out there can have a NetNavi, and I actually find that pretty interesting because it seems like anybody that does have the capacity to manipulate EM waves or even use the EM wave change are all a part of this Satella Police. And by the time you get to Star Force 3, that's where Geo and Sonya also become Satella Police commandos and work alongside with the other commandos. And I believe the only other Satella Police commando that we know is Arthur, who is Acid Ace. As far as any of the other commandos, they're pretty much just NPCs. I'll have to look that over to make sure that's correct, but if anybody, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But as far as like actual named characters, I believe Arthur, Geo, and Sonya are the only Satella Police commandos, like named ones. Something else I also wanted to mention is that there is a separate organization that works with the police, and that being WAZA, the space organization that works with the Satella Police. Something I just learned, though, is that WAZA is essentially still NASA or NAXA from Battle Network. It's the same space organization, and I guess they essentially just became WAZA later on as the years had went on, and they work to observe everything that's going on in space, to find things heading toward a planet like an asteroid, observing EM waves and finding out if there are any EM wave or EM beings out there in space, cooperating and doing all that, working with the Satella Police, because there are members that actually do have EM wave beings or EM beings working alongside them. But yeah, those are official net battlers. That is what an official net battler is. And I, try to tie it in a bit into Star Force a little bit with, their police force. If there are any more official net battlers, or if there is any more information on official net battlers, please let me know. If there is any like supplemental material that I'm not privy to or anything like that, I do think it's cool just to kind of touch up on this piece of lore, as that is what this series is for. So let me know what you think. Give your thoughts. Are there any other characters that you think could have been an official net battler that may not have been stated, or any characters that you deem worthy of being official net battlers? Like, I guess, Colonel and, Barrel and Colonel are two characters that can easily fit that bill as well, even if it wasn't necessarily stated. Although Barrel seems more like a, freelancer rather than like an official net battler. That'll be all for this one. Of course, if you do like these videos, like I said, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Big goal right now is 1,000 subs. That's my next big goal. So let's go ahead and do that if you like what I do. Make sure you hit the notification bell so that you never miss any updates for uploads and live streams coming up on the channel. And look forward to more BBS chats coming soon. With all of that being said, this is the Space Cowboy, and I hope you guys have a good night.